morning and welcome to Fluent Pro webinar. We'll start just in one more minute. Please wait. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, and today we'll talk about the Project Online migration. In fact, migration to Microsoft Project Online, and we'll share some of our experience and case studies and some lessons learned. How you can improve your migration, what is the best practices. Today's webinar will be organized by myself. My name is Anton Krasov. I'm president of Fluent Pro Software, and my co-organizer is Alona Gonchar. She's our service director, and her main focus is everything around the migrations. The webinar will be recorded, and we will share the recordings the next day. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to write your questions in the questions section in GoToWebinar. So we will try to answer those questions at the end. So very quickly, introduction about the Fluent Pro. We are ISV. We develop software for Microsoft PPM platform, and it's different software configuration management, migration software. We probably the most famous for our migration tool called Fluent Books, and recently we introduced multiple other tools in segment. We also help companies to provide the professional service and implementation migrating, but that's small part of our business implementation. But migration is our key focus, and we help customers go to cloud from Project Online to digitize their PMO and transform their operation by implementing and by going to cloud. If we take a look on our company, we are our products, they can be split in two distinct categories. So first category is definitely the implementation or migration cycle, where you are new to cloud or new to the Microsoft PPM platform, and at some point when everything is up and running, your environment goes to operation cycle. So Fluent Books, which will focus mostly today during this webinar, is a tool for one of the main scenarios for tool is advanced configuration management and migration. And today this webinar is all about the migration. We as well have quick start, like every partner, they have the quick start for implementing and small components. For operation cycle, we have all the software for governance administration suite or GA suite. This product is for configuration management of your production tenant, where you need to maintain your development, test, and production environments all together. We have solutions for integration, for data data reporting, data mart, multiple other products. But again, back to our migration, we are the leader in migration because we are the only partner who has commercially available software for migration. We provide it as software along with our support services, and as well we provide the managed services where companies can hire us for migration. It means that we will help companies to get their data from Project Server to Project Online, and we have great experience with that. Very quickly, statistics. We just recently calculated some statistics from 2018 for migrations where the just Fluent Books was used, or migrations that we performed. So we participated at some extent, just the Fluent Books or with services, in over 209 migration. We helped search for customers to do the managed migration, small and large, between from Project Server to Project Online. Total number, we migrated 32,000 projects and almost 250,000 resources that we moved from on-prem to the cloud. Our largest migration was about the 5,000 projects for one of the large companies, and today Alona will show some cases where we have resources that usually it's in thousands that we move from on-prem to Project Online. So if you consider your migration, please keep in mind that our software, it really can improve your chances and your process and will optimize the time for migrating your data to cloud. And right now I will transfer controls to Alona, and she will explain how we do the migration, and she will share some best practices and some lessons learned.
Thank you, Anton. So migration of PPM data to Project Online is an important step for organization in transforming of PMO capability, because with every version of Microsoft's project server, new features are added, new improvements related to how data is kept, organized, whether it's stored on premises or on cloud, is improved. And successful migration to Project Online, it increases the success of portfolio management in the organization, because it gives you more flexibility. It gives you more advanced tool for managing your projects and portfolios. Migration of Project SOAR 2010 and 2013 data to Project Online is a complex process, and it requires developing of a migration strategy. It requires planning and some testing also to ensure that data integrity is preserved when data is moved from older version of Project Server to Project Online. This is a migration process overview. As I mentioned, it's pretty complex, and even with help of FluentBooks that automates the migration process, there are still several specific steps that need to be taken in particular sequence. And among the steps are first section is done in your source PWA, whether it's Project SOAR 2010 or 2013, or even Project Online if you're migrating from one tenant to another. And first activities that you would do in every migration is to download your data from source PWA. It is being downloaded in several parts. Number one is PWA configuration. This includes your settings, your custom fields, lookup tables, your resources. So basically everything that you would see on the PWA settings page if you go to the PWA. Second part of data is project schedules. That includes schedules themselves with tasks, assignments, PDPs, project field values that you would see on PDPs, and project plan templates. Our recommendation before you start downloading data from PWA to packages is to publish projects in your source PWA. In our experience, it helps to improve data integrity. And FluentBooks provides a specific wizard called Publish Projects that would help you to do a bulk publish. This publish is done through Project Professional, but you will not need to open every project and to publish it manually. FluentBooks will do it for you. FluentBooks will open each project and publish it through Project Professional. And the third part of data is SharePoint sites. This includes your root PWA site data, such as lists and libraries, and project sites. during download process, data will be downloaded into local files on the machine where FluentBooks is installed. FluentBooks will create specific packages, workspaces for configuration and SharePoint content, and FPP packages for project plans. After all data is downloaded, the next step would be to upload this data from the local packages to your destination PWA in Project Online. And there is also a specific sequence of steps to be taken because data is depends on each other. For example, in your projects you have custom fields like project level custom fields and task level custom fields, and these fields would need to exist in the PWA for the data to be uploaded correctly. So your first step of the data upload would be to upload SharePoint content for the root PWA, like list libraries and settings. This is done to make sure that if, for example, you have workflows or PDPs that depend on some lists and libraries in your root PWA site, this lists will be available when you do uploads. The next step would be to upload PWA configuration itself with custom fields, enterprise project types, PDPs, and resources. After configuration is in place and is verified and corrected if necessary, the next step would be to upload project plan templates, upload projects, verify project migration results. If everything is correct and in place, then it will be the turn of project sites and verification of migration results. During upload of project sites, they will be created with all their lists and libraries, and also project sites will be connected to the projects that are already uploaded. There are several factors that are critical for successful migration to Project Online. And among them would be, first of all, to set clear expectations with the business customer if you are a partner and doing migration for a customer, or within your company, how migration would go, what to expect, and what results you get after migration is done. Because migration, since it's a complex process, it requires thoughtful planning, and it requires time to do the migration. Because if you have like several years of data, for example, unfortunately, it will take longer than 1 weekend to migrate it. It may take days, and for large environments, even weeks, to migrate the data and to verify that everything is correct. The next factor is to estimate and assess the data to be migrated, to understand whether you need everything that you have in your source environment to be migrated to Project Online, or just some specific things. Like, for example, if you have 1,000 projects, but some of them are really old and they actually don't need to be brought to Project Online. Reducing the scope will also reduce the duration of migration. So when you have smaller number of projects and project sites, it will help you to move faster to the new environment. Another factor is understanding technical boundaries of Project Online for your migration process, and this factor has basically 2 components. First of all, Project Online is a cloud environment. It's a shared one. It works in a bit different way than your on-premises environment, where you have more control. So you would need to do less administration tasks than in your on-premises environment, but for some things you would need to contact Microsoft support if such necessity arises. And the second component of this factor is migration is being done not from like copying data from one database to another database. Migration is done with the help of the migration tool that retrieves the data and uploads the data through the public APIs. There are several of them for different components of data. And usage of such APIs also brings some technical limitations. And on Fluent Pro help site, in the section related to Fluent Books, we have a list of limitations that you would need to keep in mind when doing migration to Project Online. Other factors that would make your migration successful is developing a migration strategy, like understanding what data you will be moving to Project Online, like if you need to split the data or if you will be migrating it as like all together, developing a migration project schedule, identifying tasks that would need to be done, who will be responsible, how long it would take to complete specific tasks. Before migration to Project Online starts, Project Online environment itself would need to be prepared for migration. Project Online PWAs would need to be provisioned. Site collection space would need to be allocated. Users who would need to have access to Project Online environment would need to be created on the tenant level with their new accounts. And other factors, they are related to the process of migration itself. And as a first step, we recommend to perform a training migration to take a small volume of data, like PWA configuration, several projects, several project sites, and to migrate them to a test PWA, just to get the understanding and the feeling of the migration process itself, to understand like how to go through wizards, what parts need to be monitored, what parts do not need to be monitored. And after training, we always advise to perform a test migration to a test PWA. And it is always good to migrate the whole volume of data. This is done not only to get more clear understanding of how long the migration would take, but also to catch some data-specific and environment-specific issues, if any, and prepare correction and mitigation plans before you start doing production migration. Because if there is something wrong, for example, with project's data, and it could happen if you are migrating from older versions of Project Server, because even when you migrate from Project Server 2010, it is also possible that previously your environment was upgraded from even earlier versions of Project Server, like 27, maybe even 23. And some projects may have some internal data-specific issues, and it's always good to catch these issues and address them before you do the production, because during production you're usually limited in time and cannot afford spending too much on resolving issues. After the test migration is done and there are lessons learned and mitigation plans created, it will be time for production migration. And after production migration, there are usually some post-migration activities that include validation, trainings for users, for business users, for super users who will be administering environment. And it is possible that there will be also other activities like creating new reports and like working with a new environment. There are several parts of migration strategy that would need to be developed when you plan the migration and look into migrating to Project Online. And first of all is to identify components for migration, like what parts of PWA configuration you would like to bring to Project Online. What is the specific list of projects that will be migrated? What are the project sites that you will be migrating? Decide if data will be migrated to a clean Project Online PWA, or some pre-configurations will be done in the environment. When migrating a large volume of data, it is very helpful to prioritize what needs to be migrated first, and what can be left in the older system. Like, for example, if you have a large number of projects, some of them are active, some of them are closed and completed and closed. It is possible that you would decide to bring your active projects first, and for completed projects you can either migrate them later or even migrate them to a separate PWA that would act as an archive environment. Also, it is important to identify what is not supported in Project Online and develop a mitigation plan. For example, SSRS reports that are used in Project SOAR 2010 and 2013, they are not supported in Project Online, and you would need to think how to adjust your reports to the new environment, because in Project Online you would use a data API for reporting and maybe Power BI to create and share your reports. This would need to be planned prior you go live with the new environment. And also identifying post-migration activities is important because it will be some support period after the migration. Users will start using new environment. Maybe there will be some questions, some issues that they would need help with. So this is also part of developing migration strategy and planning. When we do migration as a service, and when we provide trainings for the for using Fluent Books for migrations, we recommend the following approach to the migration. We split migration into several phases, and first phase is planning and migrating data to test Project Online PWA, like all parts of data that you decide to take to Project Online, configuration, resources, resource plans that would be transformed to engagements in Project Online. Also projects with their tasks, assignments, project templates, project sites that are associated with projects, including their lists, which can be like out-of-the-box lists, like issues and risks, and also custom lists, and libraries with documents. After data is migrated to test Project Online PWA, it would need to be carefully verified to make sure that all the data is in place, that if there are any issues during the migration, they would need to be identified and corrected. For the verification part, like first of all, first part is done by migration team, like to make sure that there are no errors, that projects are migrated, that sites are migrated. But another part that includes in the migration is doing user acceptance testing, like users who will be working with projects, who will be working with PWA, they would also need to check their data, how projects work for them, how timesheets work for them, if everything is correct. And we do recommend engaging people of different roles and people that have a different access level to the PWA, like administrators, project managers, team members, to ensure that you do validation from different aspects. And after test migration is completed and everything looks good and your migration project plan is adjusted with more accurate durations of the migration activities, it will be time to perform the production migration. And there are several approaches to do production migration. Sometimes it is not sometimes, quite often, it is impossible to freeze source environment for a long time because users, they need to work with their projects, they need access to their documents, they need to submit timesheets. So one of the approaches to production migration is to do main migration without freezing the environment. Download all the data from the source PWA, then upload it to production Project Online PWA, allowing users to still work with the data in the older environment. And after main migration is done and verified that all is correct, then a small last phase happens when you would migrate only modified projects, like projects that were modified during production migration, and only modifications to project sites. So there is a difference in migrating modified projects and project sites. With projects, the whole project would need to be remigrated. With project sites, it's a bit easier. You will be able to download only modified list items and documents and then upload them to Project Online. This phase is the shortest in the whole migration, and depending on your volume of data, it can be done within several days when users will not have access to the source environment. And after this phase is completed, users will switch to Project Online and start working with their projects there. Another approach to production migration, when projects are being modified on the daily basis, like a lot of them, and it is not possible to do migration of modified data within a short term, like in several days, then the data would need to be split into batches. Like PWA configuration would go first, and then projects migrated by departments. So it will be a gradual switch to the new environment. This approach requires really careful planning, because it will be hard for users to work with two environments simultaneously. But this approach also is doable, and if users change their projects on the daily basis, it is like perhaps the only approach that would allow to migrate without freezing the source environment for like several weeks. So this is the example of this is one of the migrations that we've done in 2018. This was migration from Project SOAR 2013 to Project Online, and the scope of migration was about 1,500 of resources, 600 projects, and each project had a project site associated with it. So the approach that we used for this migration is the following. First, we did a test migration, and we did test migration in two waves. We migrated PWA configuration and active projects and their project sites first, because these were priority items. And after actively used data was migrated, we started production migration. So we were migrating PWA configuration and active projects and sites to production PWA. And while this first wave of production migration was ongoing, in parallel, we were migrating archived projects and project sites to the test Project Online PWA. So there were two streams of migration. We had quite limited window for the migration. There was a very strict due date when old environment would be switched off. So that's why we actually had to do two waves of migrations at the same time to make sure that all active projects are in production Project Online and users can start working with them. After first wave of production migration was completed, this was done without freezing the source environment. The second wave was much shorter, and it took just several days, the end of the week and weekend, when modified resources, projects, and sites were migrated to production PWA. After this wave was completed, users switched to production Project Online PWA and started working with their projects there. And after go live, there was a separate migration of archived projects, and they were migrated not into the main production PWA, but they were migrated into a separate PWA that would act as a storage for archived projects. So we migrated PWA configuration there, all the archived projects and project sites associated with them. So splitting data into active and archived helped us to move to production Project Online environment faster, because there were about 200 active projects and about 400 archived ones, and reducing the scope makes migration faster. But archived projects, they were not left behind, they were also migrated. Another example of the migration that we performed, it was from Project SOAR 2010 to Project Online, and this migration, it included about 8,000 resources, about 2,200 projects, and there were no project sites associated with projects, so they were not used in the older environment. Only root PWA site had lists and libraries that were used, and they were migrated together with projects data. So during the test migration, we decided to split it also into several waves because to do verification is easier for like the migration team and for the customer who is performing UAT when you have a specific list of projects that you need to migrate and to verify. And like when you have a report of 2,200 projects that you need to verify, it takes longer, and you can be like a bit lost in a large amount of data. So we split the whole volume into several batches. We migrated PWA configuration first and did a verification that all the settings, all the fields, all the resources are migrated correctly. And then we migrated the first batch of projects, about 500 projects. And for other waves, we migrated only modified resources and also batches of projects, like about 500 each, 500 or 600. So why do we need to migrate modified resources? In the source environment in Project Source 2010, users, they submit timesheets, and with their actuals for projects, users also submit administrative time like sick leave, vacation, and this time it is added to users' calendar exceptions like non-working days. And these non-working days, they affect the schedule because like duration will become longer for the task, and finish date will be changed if resource was not working on a particular day. And if calendar exceptions are missing from the target environment, this will cause discrepancies in the schedule. So with each batch of projects, we migrated modified resources to ensure that all calendar exceptions are migrated before we upload projects. And for the fifth wave, we migrated also a small selection of projects. These were specific projects that were selected for UAT. There were like about 20 of them, like specific kinds of projects. And after test migration was done, we performed production migration in a bit different way than the test migration. All projects, they were split by departments, by 4 departments, and so when during the first wave, we migrated all PWA configuration with resource, with settings, with everything, and projects that belong to Department A. This migration was done within like first wave. It took us 4 days. So it was like Friday, weekend, and Monday. And after first wave was completed, Department A switched to Project Online environment. Departments B, C, and D, they were still working in the old environment. And during next waves, we migrated modified resources and projects that belonged to a specific department. So after each wave was completed, department that was just migrated, it switched to Project Online. So users were using two environments, but since there was a distinction in departments, like departments that were still in Project SOAR 2010, they were using this environment, but departments that were already migrated to Project Online, they no longer used Project SOAR 2010. They were working with their projects in Project Online PWA. So, and splitting projects by departments and migrating them in these batches allowed us to freeze source environment for only 2 days in addition to weekends, and users whose projects were still in Project SOAR 2010 after this short period of freeze, they were able to continue working with their projects and timesheets in the PWA. So there are several new lessons learned that we carried out of migrations that were done last year, and one of them is it is important to perform download of PWA configuration that includes resources and projects as close in time as possible. And the reason behind that is calendar exceptions that I mentioned before. If there is a gap between download of resources and download of projects, it is possible that calendar exceptions that are stored on the resource level and calendar exceptions that are stored on the project level, they will be different, and this will cause discrepancies in project schedules. So to prevent these discrepancies, we performed download of PWA configuration and batch of projects over the weekend when users are not working with their projects. So this helped us to ensure that calendar exceptions were as equal as possible in resources and projects. And the second lesson learned is related to the first one. When projects are migrated in batches, updates to PWA configuration, they would need to be migrated prior to each batch of projects. This includes modified resources, but also if there are changes to some custom fields or lookup tables, if new values are added to lookup tables, they would also need to be migrated to the new environment prior to uploading the next batch of projects. Last year, there were changes in Microsoft API, and migration of status managers is again supported for standard projects and sub-projects. Before that, it was not supported for some time when there was a switch from PSI API to CSOM. But last year we we added support of migration of status managers. Unfortunately, migration of status managers is still not supported for master projects because it is still a limitation of CSOM API. Migration of project timelines is now supported, but only for the timelines that were created in Project Professional. They are stored on the level of MPP file. And if there were any edits to the Project Online that were done in the PWA, they are still not migrated. So if managers created and updated their timelines in Project Professional, these timelines are migrated to Project Online. And the last lesson that was learned from the migration, if there are reports that rely on specific object GUIDs, like if reports rely, for example, on task GUIDs or on project GUIDs, it is possible that they might need to be adjusted in the destination PWA, because there are entities, there are objects for which GUID is changed during migration, and there are objects for which GUID is preserved. On the Fluent Pro help site, we have a list of objects that are being migrated, and there is an indication whether GUID is preserved or not. Like, for example, for projects, like on the project level, GUID is preserved, but for tasks and assignments, GUID is changed when the project is uploaded. For the resources, if they are created by Fluent Books during upload, GUID is preserved, but if resources are created in Project Online by ADSync, then GUIDs will be changed because they will be auto-assigned by Project Online during creation. So if reports rely not on display name or task name or project name, but if they rely on object GUID, these reports will need to be revised and adjusted either during test migration or as a post-migration activity. Anton, would you like to talk a bit more about our special offer for migration?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, we have an offer if you planning your migration. So please feel free to reach out to us, and what we can do, we can evaluate your topology of your PWA. What do you plan? We can suggest what kind of data can be migrated and what is the best strategies, and we can provide the estimate for how long it will take. And for us, again, like we are more than happy to provide you with software and support services, or do a managed migration, since we have a lot of experience. As well, if you want to consider doing it yourself, we can provide you with trial of Fluent Pro Fluent Books for 7 days, so you can try and see how the software works. And for all the managed migrations, we will provide not just Fluent Books, but we also will provide you GA Suite. It's our configuration management and disaster recovery solution that it will support the backup and restore for up to 250 projects. That will be annual subscription as part of the offering. So feel free to reach out to us. And then can you go to next slide? The contacts are here, so you can send your request to sales@fluentpro.com or call us, and we can schedule next steps. And if you have any questions regarding your migration, please feel free to reach out. We are here to help. Okay, Alena, thank you for your time, and thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, like if any questions, please feel free to reach out, and thank you for your time on the seminar. Bye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.